Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome. A superb morning to all the dedicated UPSC aspirants and focused learners joining us today. I hope your prep is going absolutely brilliantly. Now listen, we're not just doing a casual reading today. We are jumping straight into a high-stakes, rapid-fire briefing. Every single detail we're about to cover is a high-yield, purely factual nugget pulled right from the most crucial socioeconomic and political developments happening as we speak. So, sit up straight, get that focus razor sharp, and let's upgrade your knowledge base with this explainer.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Our rundown today covers 4 core pillars. We're looking at the intersection of health and national cooling, the independence of the Election Commission, India's strategic autonomy, and finally, some critical macroeconomic indicators. Pay close attention here, because right after this briefing, you're going to face a rapid-fire MCQ assessment to test exactly what you've retained. Let's get straight to it.
First up on the board is the SEHAT mission. SEHAT literally stands for Strengthening Health Through Agriculture and Nutrition. Now, traditionally, we kind of look at agriculture and public health as entirely separate boxes, right? Like 2 different worlds. But the brilliant core of this mission is how it integrates the Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR, with the Indian Council of Medical Research, the ICMR. It recognizes a very simple ground-level truth. It's all farm to plate. By focusing on nutrient-rich farming, like pushing for millets or Shriana, we're naturally building a much stronger preventative public health culture right at the root. It's way better than just trying to treat illnesses in hospitals later on.
Now, what's really interesting here is how we tackle massive environmental challenges, specifically the need for a national cooling doctrine tailored for Indian indoor environments. Look, as extreme heat waves become the new normal, we simply can't just import cooling solutions from the global north, right? They just don't fit our context. Instead, this doctrine emphasizes 3 immediate hyper-localized steps. We're talking deploying reflective roofing to naturally deflect heat, implementing centralized district cooling systems for those really dense urban zones, and, this is absolutely crucial, carefully calibrating our air conditioners to match the specific quirks of the Indian power grid. This ensures we can actually survive the heat without, completely collapsing our national electricity infrastructure.
Moving on to a really crucial constitutional development, let's talk about the Election Commission of India. Previously, following the Supreme Court's judgment in the Anu Barnwal case, the selection panel for top election officials was made up of the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India, and the Leader of the Opposition. Pretty straightforward. However, a 2023 act passed by Parliament introduced a massive shift. The new law actually replaced the Chief Justice with a Union Cabinet Minister nominated by the PM. Now, this fundamentally alters the composition of the panel, and as you've probably seen, it sparked some incredibly intense constitutional debates regarding the structural independence of the poll body.
And that directly brings us to a very powerful observation made during these ongoing debates. It was stated that the Supreme Court cannot become a second chamber of Parliament. Think about that for a second. This really highlights the strict constitutional doctrine of the separation of powers. Now, of course, the judiciary has the power of judicial review. They act to ensure laws align with the Constitution. But there is a very fine Lakshman Rekha, a strict boundary, preventing it from crossing over into judicial overreach. The courts literally cannot dictate legislation or act like a parallel parliament. Basically, each organ of the state has to operate independently within its own defined sphere to maintain that democratic balance.
Let's shift our focus internationally for a moment to some incredibly complex geopolitical boundaries, specifically the two-state solution. So, what is this? Well, it's the internationally recognized UN-mandated framework that proposes 2 independent, secure states for Israel and Palestine, and this brilliantly illustrates India's diplomatic position. Because recently, at the BRICS Foreign Ministers meeting, India strongly reaffirmed its long-standing, neutral stance supporting this exact framework. Our diplomatic position has been remarkably consistent over the years. We advocate for peace, mutual coexistence, and the absolute necessity of secure borders for both nations. We completely reject the idea that one state's existence should negate the other's.
Building right on that international stance, let's take a look at the evolution of India's foreign policy. Historically, if we go back to the Cold War, India practiced non-alignments, basically staying away from major power blocs. But today, we have shifted to multi-alignment. This means we are actively engaging with multiple global powers at the exact same time, even if those powers are adversaries with each other. So why do we do this? It's to fiercely protect our strategic autonomy. It's basically the diplomatic equivalent of realpolitik. We reserve the ultimate right to make independent decisions based purely on our own national interests, without being dictated to by any external military or economic alliance.
But, maintaining this multi-alignment strategy, it's becoming incredibly difficult. Just look at three major pressure points we're dealing with right now. First, our procurement of the S-400 missile defense system from Russia. Second, our strategic investments in the Chabahar port in Iran. And third, our continuous import of heavily discounted Russian crude oil. The current geopolitical conflicts, especially with the U.S. using its immense economic leverage and sanctions against nations like Iran and Russia, it places a severe squeeze on India. It's honestly a generational challenge to navigate these immense Western pressures while still stubbornly defending our sovereign right to trade and build our own security partnerships.
So what does this all mean for us at home? How do these global geopolitical tensions directly hit our domestic economy? Well, consider this really stark figure, 8%. That is the recent surge in the Wholesale Price Index, or WPI, and it's primarily being driven by the escalating costs of importing that very same global crude oil we literally just talked about. Now you might be wondering, why does this matter to me? Well, the crucial point is that while this inflation is currently hitting at the wholesale level, it hasn't fully cascaded down to the retail consumer yet, the CPI. But mark my words, a WPI spike is a massive leading indicator. It's a huge red flag signaling that intense inflationary pressures are building up and they're eventually going to reach our everyday retail markets.
Furthermore, when global economic uncertainty spikes like this, we face another severe macroeconomic challenge, and that's capital flight, sometimes called capital outflow. Basically, this happens when foreign investors get spooked and rapidly pull their investments right out of the Indian market to go seek safer havens elsewhere. And when they take their money out, what do? They sell Indian rupees to buy foreign currency, usually the US dollar. This massive selling pressure creates a deficit and directly depreciates the value of the rupee. And a weaker rupee means our purchasing power on the global market drops. So those crucial imports we need, like that crude oil, become even more expensive, which just further feeds right back into that inflation cycle we just talked about. It's a tough loop.
Now let's move to and see how this builds. Because to insulate ourselves from these massive global economic shocks, our internal machinery literally has to be flawless. Enter the LEADS report, published by the DPIIT. LEADS stands for Logistics Ease Across Different States. And guys, this is an absolutely vital metric. See, logistics isn't just about building a shiny new highway. It's about the quality of the warehouses, the seamless connectivity between rail and road, and the regulatory ease of actually moving goods. Think about it. If a farmer grows a perishable item like tomatoes, perfectly smooth logistics ensure it reaches the market before spoiling. Efficient logistics prevent massive agricultural and industrial waste, which directly, fundamentally boosts the resilience of our entire economy. And just like that, it brings our high-speed executive rundown to a close. We've covered a massive amount of ground today, from the farm-to-plate logic of the Sehat mission to the strict constitutional boundaries of the Election Commission, all the way to the immense geopolitical pressures on India's strategic autonomy and the inflation-driving forces of capital flight. As India continues to balance its internal growth with these wild external geopolitical storms, the ultimate question is just how resilient are our democratic and economic institutions? Keep that provocative thought in mind. But right now, it is time to shift gears. As promised, your knowledge check begins right now. Are you ready to prove your attention? Let the assessment